Wu-Sabat, Moisa, Wu-Sabat. Okay, another weekend of Wu-Sabat. We're here again. A lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. Okay. All right. So let's see. We're going to get started here. So again, Wu-Sabat to everyone. To everyone. All right. Okay. For those who do not know me, my name is Peti Sina Teptu Re'e, and I've been over a 30-year student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Panabab Yananan, also known as Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, who has been teaching us our ancient culture. We identify as Wu-Sabat, also known as Wu-Nawap, which stands for those who make decisions based on sound right reasonability, based on the principles of Ma'at, based on the wisdom of the Hutri. In essence, what that translates to is, as an African people, we lived in harmony with natural nature. Today, people call it animism. And it was about being in harmony, being in tune with natural nature. And this was the culture that we lived for thousands of years. That we identify as Wu-Sabat, or it was also known as Noon, the culture of Noon. And we argue as students of Wu-Sabat that the challenges that Black people are dealing with all over the globe is due to the fact we got away from our original cultures, right? Our original culture of our ancestors, when we lived as a great people, when we ruled ancient Kemet, ancient Nubia. And since we've gotten away from our original culture and we adapted foreign cultures, we've been on a downward spiral of self-destruction in essence, which culminated in the last 500 years being controlled by racism, white supremacy around the globe, which has been a nightmare for us living this European cultures. And we're argue that the only way we can fix ourselves and begin to correct the problems that we're dealing with is to correct the decisions that we're making, to get back to sound reasoning decisions, right? Getting back to our original way we did things culturally, and to get to stop living the cultures, the Western cultures that has taught us so many bad habits that we've developed, you know, and this is what we are dedicated to, trying to educate our people about, trying to teach our people about, and this is what our discussions are about. So every Tuesday For those who are available, come to our NoopooH live classes, question and answer classes. And these classes are based around people reading our books. We put out much literature, and I try to make lectures and videos pertaining to our books, and for you to come to the live classes to ask questions so that we can address those things. Of course, we cover topics every week pertaining to our culture, which is also designed to help edify the listening audience. And so, again, we always tell everybody to sit back, relax, enjoy. And if you have any questions or concerns, do not hesitate to address it to us. Now, before we get started, we start everything with our prayer system, right? Which is about our spiritual development. And we do our prayers every week, and we do it in our language called Sabaic. And you have I translate it in English. So there's the English version of it as well as our language of Sabaic. So I say it in Sabaic first, and then I translate it to English. Okay. And we do this every week. All right. So let's get started. Bade kala namasat wufad ko aman kasamun shalal poot. Panen safa kawun pa sawa wu pa tara. Z kawuna nazul laha enkum mana masbad wu masa. Ama hadayan shafe mana muslafu wu nataru. Ajula ye nafasu kum afuk shane kawun kuma pa sawa wu pa tara. This book is the truth and the way. It was sent down for you all from Wu-Sabat, Wu-Sabat, star constellation, as a guidance and a healing from our ancestors and overseers. Return to your own, accept what is yours, the truth and the way. And nun tawa ankum laha panan shafe'un wu alaj. And nun tawa ankum laha nasuinun. Annun tawa ankum laha ashuk. Ankum ata salafunun. Annun ata khara'ukum. Annun talub nasar kuma. Annun talub nasar kuma. And so nun sayim nataru. And so nun salafunun. Annun ata musba'u. We thank you all for this healing and cure. We thank you all for not forgetting us. We thank you all for ashuk. You are our ancestors. We are your children. We seek your help. We seek your help. Help us, divine overseers. Help us, our ancestors. We are Musba'u. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Jennifer. Okay. All right. So every week before we get into our actual discussion, we always go over the core principles of our culture, the core principles of Wu-Sabat. I can't stress it enough, the importance of the core principles. All of our lectures and all of our discussions are based around our core principles. And it is the purpose of this is what we're supposed to be living by. And I don't know how to stress how important this is, which is why I go over each and every week. It is imperative that everyone really comprehend these core principles and strive to your best ability to apply them into your day-to-day lives and to teach them, right? It is imperative. You don't not only do you apply it and you live it, but you're also supposed to teach this to our people. And that's what, again, all of our classes are designed to help you teach these core principles. And that's why I'm a stickler for it. And that's because over my 30 years in this culture, in this doctrine, I've seen so many people come and they leave because they never was able to really embody and comprehend these principles and live by them. And that's why I stress this so much. So I can't say it enough. So principle number 1 is Ashak, and it stands for the power of love or divine love, right? Ashak is the actual creation energy that grew existence itself. Okay. And we did a discussion on that. So definitely check out that lecture for those who had not seen it. And I'm always telling you guys, watch the lectures again. Principle number 2 is resurrection. It's about becoming goddesses and gods. Again, by learning to reopen our third eye as our ancestors once, were. Their third eyes were open. And this is the ultimate goal of being a student of Wu-Sabat, to learn how to reopen your third eye. And we did a lecture on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 3 is the wisdom of the Hutri and Ma'at. The Hutri stands for our divine mind, and Ma'at stands for order. We did discussions on both of those principles, so we highly recommend, guys, check those lectures out. Principle number 4 is relationships. As an African people, we always live of, for, and by each other as a community, as a tribe. And, this is what our culture is really about, for us to get away from capitalism and socialism, and communism, and all these isms that the Europeans impose on us, as opposed to living our original culture, right? Which was community. It was about community living. So, and we did a lecture on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 5 is morphic resonance / matrix. Morphic resonance stands for sound, color, vibrations, frequencies, and matrices are the manifestations of these vibrational sounds. Okay, and the material manifestations. We haven't did a discussion on that, but we will. It's coming soon. Principle number 6 is Leviathan. Leviathan equals moon culture, aka religion, aka Western culture. This is what we're at war with, right? We're trying to get away from the culture of Leviathan. We did lectures on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 7 is soul and spirit. Your soul is your emotional force, and your spirit is your life force. We did lecture on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 8 is health. Health starts with a positive mind. As melanated people, we need a lot of sunlight, water. The body is 70% water. Fasting at least once or twice a week. Herbal diet, something Dr. Sabi always taught us. Exercise is key to health. Learning to rhythmically breathe. That's extremely important. We have a book on that. Meditation, concentration, prayer, and chanting. Health, as we always teach, is not just physical, but it's also spiritual. Health is not just physical, but it's also spiritual. Our people are suffering health-wise because we lost that knowledge that health is also spiritual. If you don't do one without the other, you're going to be sick. And that's why we are suffering, unfortunately, because we forgot the spiritual components to health. And principle number 9 is to acknowledge existence itself. We call it pa'ut, right? It just translates in English as all, the creative force. You can't add to the all, because where would you, get it from? You can't take from the all, because where would you put it, right? All is, right? And that's the name we use, is pa'ut, the creation of force, existence. And creation is based on what we say the SMAT, which stands for cycles. Existence is based on perpetual cycles, sun cycles, the moon cycles, the sun cycles. Okay, we used to know these things. Unfortunately, we don't now. We have to relearn. And the creation energy, we call it akach. It translates to ether. Today's scientists call it the quantum field force. They change their names, but we call it the creation of forces akach. Okay. Now, as a Sabian, we have 3 goals for those who are Sabians. Goal number 1 is to raise the self. Goal number 2 is to fight Leviathan. And goal number 3 is to work to build Sabbatia. Now, in goal number 1, raising the self, first thing is we teach you got to be born again like Christians, right? To give up the old culture we learned here in the West and to embrace the new culture of Wu-Sabat and to learn to live it. And in doing that, one of the things you got to do is correct your name, right? Choose a Sabian name. Extremely important. Make it known to all. Correct how you look and dress. Start, identifying when it's appropriate, right? Your cultural clothing. Learn to speak our language, Sabeg. That's key. Our language is based on tones. This is about helping you develop yourself spiritually. Believe it or not. You must study our doctrine each and every day, which builds your sound right reasoning skills. I can't stress that enough. This will help you in your day-to-day decisions. This is why we constantly recommend it. Constantly stay in our doctrine. Constantly read the books. Constantly studying the information. It will help you in your day-to-day decisions. Next is you must practice and master our daily rituals to turn yourself inside out. This is how you're going to open your third eye, guys, by doing the rituals each and every day. Commit to it and always be positive. You're not going to accomplish any worthwhile goal unless you maintain a positive mind, guys. Then number 2, fight Leviathan. The second goal Leviathan is what we've been at war with for the last 6,000 years. Okay, and this is what we're battling against. In addition to that, fighting Leviathan is working to free Panabab Yananan, promoting the culture of Wu-Sabat, right? Become a student teacher for those who can teach, right? Hopefully if that's your path, and fight the 6 strongest weapons of Leviathan, which are ignorance, fear, ego, anger, your lust slash desires, lies slash deceptions. Fight those things within yourself and help others to overcome those things, because this is what's plaguing us. Okay. And the last goal of a Sabaean is to work to build Sabbatia, our home, to get our lands back. Preferably for us to go back to the continent and set up shop to build our culture. We work to support each other in business. We help each other reach positive goals. We help to build our culture, and we must set up a landing zone for Panathardo in Africa, which means we need land in Africa that would be supported by an African government, guys. And Ashuk is the key to accomplish all our goals. Now, what does it mean to be a Sabaean? A Sabaean is someone who's thoughtful and cares, someone who's helpful and honest, someone who's responsible and hardworking, someone who demands justice and honorable, someone who's righteous and humble, someone who's positive and cheerful, someone who's loving and peaceful, someone who is kind and considerate, and someone who is neat, clean, and orderly, guys. Now, our purpose as Sabaean is we're constantly fighting we're fighting for liberation against adverse forces. This is what your goal is supposed to be each and every day. This is what your purpose is, the fight for liberation, right? Number 1, you must take action each and every day to free yourself of 6 ether spirits inside and out, which includes Black people who are possessed by these spirit forces, guys. Number 2, acknowledge and fight 6 ether from promoting capitalism, the gay agenda, miscegenation, the so-called equality of the races, and racism, white supremacy. And number 3, learn, live by, and promote the laws/rules of natural nature. All of these are keys towards our liberation. Word of advice: do not judge this doctrine by watching the behavior of Panabab nor his students. Judge this doctrine by the effectiveness of the information, aka information, that you personally put to practical use. This doctrine is based on self-authentication. Know that we are not preachers, but teachers who are dedicated to answering questions until there is a meeting of the minds between teacher and student, who then can work in unity, which is the only solution to our problems. Okay, Raulbat, Kim, Raulbat, Musa, Raulbat, Gawada, Raulbat, Eddie Moth, Raulbat to everyone who's watching. All right. Okay, so that is our core principles. Now, today's discussion it's about reparations. It's about reparations. This has been a germinating topic. A lot of people have been talking about reparations within the Black community, and I think this is a subject matter that we should tackle, and this is why I decided to address it, because I think it's a very important topic. It really is. I in my opinion, I don't think it's been addressed appropriately. And being that I'm a Sabaean, I think if anyone's qualified to really talk about how reparations should be set up, I think it should be a student of Wu-Sabat, because I would argue we have the best, well-rounded outlook when it comes to culture and how we should be as a people. I would argue and debate anyone that Wu-Sabat honestly has the best solution when it comes to us as a people. And when we're talking about reparations, we're talking about repairing, right? We're talking about fixing the damages that was done to us. And so this is what we're going to get into our topic today in detail, what reparations is all about and why it's important. Okay. So if you guys have any questions or concerns along the way, do not hesitate to ask. I think this is a very important topic, so you guys should really focus on it and ask, think about what I'm talking about. Really analyze what we're saying here and chime in if you have questions or concerns so I can address, because the discussions work better if people are asking specific questions pertaining to the subject matter, and we can get clarity for everyone, right? So, I just wanted to kind of make that clear. Now, what are reparations? So that's the question. What are reparations? Answer. The root of the word reparations is the word repair, which means to fix something that was broke. Okay. Reparations is about justice for the crimes of white people against black people. Reparations is about demanding white people take responsibility for their crimes committed against black people for the past 500 years. So be mindful. I did not talk about the crimes of slavery that white people committed. I'm talking about the crimes they've been committing against black people for 500 years worth of crimes up until this very day. It had their criminal behavior against us has not stopped. Because people, when they talk about reparations, they talk about slavery. That's a joke. White people have invaded us 500 years ago, and they've been a nightmare to us ever since. Okay, so it's imperative that you guys understand that, because when people talk about reparations, they're very narrow-minded on that question. Okay, and we need to be a lot more broader in when we're talking about what they really did to us. Okay, so let's keep going. Reparations is about restoring black people's liberty and property that white people stole from us. Liberty for black people would be free of white people's political, economic, social, educational, scientific, military, or any other controls they have imposed on us for the past 500 years worldwide. That's what reparations is about, guys. Being free of all of those levels of control they have on us, guys. Reparations is about restoring our freedoms we once had before white people forced their ways into our lives. It's about restoring our power as a people. It's about restoring our wealth that was stolen from us. Okay? So I hope you understand what reparations are now. I hope everyone's clear on that. Question. Why is reparations important? Right? Why is reparations important? Answer. Every human on earth have the right to self-determination. White people stole this natural born right from black people worldwide. Here in America, white people control all levels of government and impose their will on the lives of black people without us having any power to stop them. White people use our labor and wealth to build global empires in the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and now the 21st centuries. With their global wealth and power, they now have control over the world unlike any other period in human history. They use this wealth and power to maintain their control over us and show no signs of ever wanting to create a system of justice in the world. They set up a global economic system that forced the world population to work for them to get resources from a free earth, guys. The earth is free, and no human on this planet have the right to force another person to work for them to have access to these resources. The earth charges no one for wood, or an apple, or water, or air because the earth is free. We live in a world with greedy humans who believe that they are entitled to hoard the world's resources for themselves at the expense of the labor class of people. Reparations is also important because white people continue to use their wealth and power to oppress us. They control all levels of society and use it to get their way on any issue, such as mass incarceration, jobs, media, or force us like Whoopi Goldberg, right? They forced her to apologize even when you are right about a subject matter. We have no power to oppose their will on us. They are now pushing being gay as a lifestyle choice, and we are powerless to stop it. They are pushing miscegenation. That's, racial mixing for those who don't know, and we are powerless to stop that. They promote drugs, violence, porn, and show no morals in their media, and we're powerless to stop that. Okay, and now check this out. This was on this goes to show the how they think of us. This came out. This happened the other day, and it's pretty yucky, but it was on the news the other day. And check it out. Y'all might have seen it.
Fist fight last weekend at a New Jersey mall, but when police arrived to break it up, the black teenager was held.
Why doesn't every home in the U.S. have?
All right, commercial.
Hold on. It's not about sunlight, weather.
Held to the ground and handcuffed, while the white teenager wasn't, and it is sparking outrage and actions of racial bias. CNN's Athena Jones has more on the story.
Accusations of racial bias by police after they broke up a fight between a pair of teenagers, one black, one white, at a New Jersey mall. A now viral video shows the teens having a heated discussion. The white teen pointing his finger in the face of the black teen, who pushes the white teen's hand away. The white teen then shoves the black teen, and the two begin to tussle. At one point, the white teen tackling the black teen and pinning him to a couch, then throwing him to the ground. When police arrive to break up the fight, a female officer pulls the white teen away and pushes him to the couch without handcuffs, while the other officer presses the black teen to the ground and kneels on his back. The female officer also coming over to kneel on the teen's upper back while they place him, and only him, in handcuffs. Oh no! Treatment some viewed as unequal, unfair, and racially biased. One bystander exclaiming in surprise as police handcuffed the black teen.
Yo, it's because he's black.
CNN affiliate WCBS spoke with one of the teens.
Now, see, this is the power they have over us. And, because they control all levels of government, they can do what they want, however they want, because they're the ones with the guns. They're the ones who make the laws. And so, obviously, they criminalize us and they let theirs go. Their people don't suffer those type of consequences because it's, they're the ones controlling everything. We're the ones that have to bear the blunt of this type of treatment. And people are wondering why we need reparations. To repair means to repair ourselves, to correct what was done to us, which is they took our liberties, our ability to run our own nations, our own societies, to create our own systems. That is what reparations is about. It's not about getting no freaking check. I wish our people wake up from that. Let's keep going. Question. What about white people who claim they are not responsible for the bad white people who enslaved us or treat us bad, right? Because you always got white people talking about, I never enslaved you. My ancestors didn't do that. We immigrated here. We had nothing to do with how you guys were treated. They love saying that to us. Okay, so answer to that. Black people built this country for free. The white labor class benefit every day from black people's labor and wealth. White people immigrated to America to take part in the wealth and opportunity of this nation that we as black people built. Okay, so all these immigrants came in here. They didn't come here because America was about poverty. They came here to take advantage of opportunities, guys. So don't let them fool you. And who created the opportunities for them? We did. We built this system so that they could come to have the opportunities. And they act like they're not liable to us. Let's keep going. That's like building a house, but foreigners get to live in it at your expense. How can foreigners come to America and grow rich off of the nation we as Africans built? All white people benefit from racism, white supremacy. White people are not suffering from an inferior complex as black people. We blonde our hair. Y'all know about all the blonde hair our women are wearing. It's gotten worse. It's weird. We worship the white image of God. Our people still worship white people's God. We are proud to date and marry white people. We are excited to watch white people in media be superheroes or the rich and famous, or them be portrayed in their movies as the smartest person in the world, to save the day. We fight and die in wars. White people start for freedoms we never get to enjoy. So these are all of the things we're subjugated to that white people are not. And they act like there's nothing wrong with that. Foreigners come to this nation at the invitation of white people and not black. We didn't invite them. We have no power to create immigration laws. White people set all that stuff up. Why would we want to invite someone into our house to benefit from it and we don't? As for poor white people who claim to have nothing to do with slavery, is pointless because, like I said, all white people benefit from racism, white supremacy. Question: what does reparations movement have to do with the Sabaean nation, right? So some students of Wu-Sabat might be questioning me, why am I even doing this? Because, when did we ever talk about it? All right. I would argue everything. Okay. Dr. York, since the 1970s, have been known as the reformer for this day and time. One of the names the master identify himself is the Mujaddid, and that means the reformer. The question to ask, what is a reformer, or what does that really mean? Dr. York has made it very clear that the reformer's job is to reform Black people to living their original culture of when we were acknowledged as a great people. Dr. York's job has been to educate Black people about our once greatness and how we must restore ourselves back to who and what we are. We teach that it is not about what you have become, but who you are by natural nature is what matters. We are the first world people who taught all others culture. We come from a high culture that knew how and why we built pyramids all over the world. We are called Enosites. This is a biblical name, right? We are called Enosites today because we forgot our origins and what our dormant abilities are. So Enosite means forgetful ones. We forgot, and that's exactly what would happen to us as African people, Black people around the world. We forgot our origins. We are a great and powerful people that must restore ourselves back to greatness. The reparations movement is about repairing what white people did to us. This movement lines up with the goals of the Sabaean nation. The main difference with our goal is that we teach that we have the power to restore ourselves regardless of white people. I argue we do not need white people, but we do need each other. And if most reparation advocates want to petition white people, then why let that be a dividing factor is what I'm saying. Have we not for the past 20 years petitioned white people to free Dr. York? The reparations movement is about liberation from the control that white people have on us. Should we not look for like minds who desire liberation? I think as Sabaeans, if we present our arguments of liberation, a lot of our people would agree. In fact, the Nation of Islam have been arguing liberation since the 1930s. Just read their newspapers because they put their demands in every edition. The Nation of Islam, for those who don't know, they put their demands of why they want to separate from this system. Now, I'm not sure why they don't promote that like that, but that's something the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has always talked about. Now, each and every day we fight to convince Black people why they should be Sabaeans, which is not an easy task, especially with all the negative media we have been dealing with for the past 20 years. The reparations movement is global, and I believe with the Sabaean nation on board, we could reach tens of millions of people that we most likely would not be able to reach, because getting our people worldwide to support reparations is not as difficult as convincing them to become Sabaeans. It is easier for Black people to see the benefits of reparations, but harder for them to understand the benefits of being a Sabaean. Reparations argue and fought the right way will benefit all Black people worldwide. Plus, as Sabians, why not try this? Because we have been trying so many things for the past 20 years to free Panabab with no success as of yet, and so this is kind of my stance on why I'm even talking about this, guys. Question: How does the reparations movement free Dr. York? Answer: We as Black people living in America must understand the Dred Scott case that made it very clear that Black people are not citizens of the United States, nor do we have any rights as such. That simple truth is made clear by the fact that Black people have no power or wealth to counter any of the injustices that white people commit against us each and every day, with police being able to kill us wholesale. The whole purpose of the 1960s civil rights movement, which was 100 years after our so-called emancipation, was about Black people fighting for our so-called citizenship rights that the so-called 14th Amendment gave us. Now, all know what happened to the leader of that movement. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, and it has now been proven in court that the government killed Dr. King and not the patsy or the scapegoat guy, James Earl Ray, guys. For those who don't know, Martin Luther King's family sued the government, and they sued them because they had evidence that that was a government plot to kill, Dr. King. And a lot of people don't know this to this day. It's kind of crazy that the guy they accused of killing him, James Earl Ray, he actually said he had nothing to do with it. In fact, it was found he wasn't even in town where they claim, where Martin Luther King got killed. He wasn't even in that town, But a lot of people don't know that. It's wild. The government killed them. The point being is that you killed Dr. King. You killed the civil rights movement, which is the point and all. Okay. So my point is that if we are not citizens of this nation, then that also means that we are not subject to this nation's so-called laws. Because, guys, we obviously weren't citizens of the United States prior to 1865 when we were in so-called slavery. And the Dred Scott case made that very clear that we're not citizens and we have no rights. And then we look at the civil rights movement. We were fighting for citizenship rights. That's what the civil rights movement mean. But they killed Dr. King. So obviously we still didn't get any rights. So that means Black people technically are not citizens of the United States. Not to mention, we never petitioned for it. You can't be a citizen to a nation you never petitioned. White people put that on us, the so-called 14th Amendment. That has nothing to do with Black people. I'm not sure why we don't understand that. I'm really not sure why we don't understand. We're not citizens of this country. We never petitioned to be citizens. We should get that, but we don't. I don't know why, but we don't. I can't stress that enough. Black people are not citizens of this nation. We've never, ever petitioned this government to be citizens. And when this government was set up and they created citizenships, Black people were enslaved. Plus, in order to be a citizen, you have to have rights. We don't have no rights. You have to have wealth and power and to be able to control the government. Black people have none of that. So my point is this. So let's see. So why are we being convicted and imprisoned in white people's racist courts? That's the question. We're not citizens. Why the heck we're getting locked up? We are people living in America without a nation or government to support us. We are no more than resident aliens, or AKA laborers to America, who choose to imprison anyone who does not comply with her corrupt ways. So that's really what our status is here. Resident alien, guys. I've talked about this before in my discussions. The reasons above are why in 1992, Dr. York made it clear that we are our own nation of people as Nuwaubians, or now we identify as Sabians, with our own constitution. This is why the master teacher set that up, and we identify ourselves as the Sabian nation, because we don't have no nation. The United States is not a nation for black people. We have nothing really to do with how the system is ran. America and her laws have nothing to do with black people, especially if you listen to the Moors, who make a compelling argument that to be black means that you are outside of law, right? Moors love saying that, you know, our status. Black means you're not a part of law. If this is true, and I believe it is clear that no black person should be convicted in white people's court, which would mean all court actions against black people have no basis, and black people must be released from their prisons. So actually, there's no legal basis for convicting any black person because we're not subject to any of their laws. The only reason why this stuff goes on is because black people believe they are, and they allow themselves to be subject to this corrupt system. It's our ignorance, which is really the problem. I believe this is a good strategy, to use in the fight for Dr. York's freedom from prison. White people have made it painfully clear that being black in America gives you no rights, which simply means we are not subjects to their laws. What better argument could we use to justify our reparations, or AKA liberation, from their corrupt injustice system? We as Sabians have been waging this fight alone for the past 20 years. Why fight alone when there are many people worldwide who are fighting for justice against our oppressors, right? So we've been fighting as Sabians. We've been fighting for the master teacher's freedom. And this is one of our arguments we've been making, that we're not, the master said it in court, we're not a part of their system. And guys, and all I'm trying to say, this is really a part of what reparations is really all about, to be liberated from this system in general. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. Go on to say, I tell all to please research the movie 13th, guys. That's on Netflix. Also study the mass incarceration, right? They lock us up wholesale, which is just an extension of slavery. That's what that movie documentary 13th is about, that slavery was never abolished. Read the book The New Jim Crow, also explains that slavery was never abolished. There's another book called 3 Felonies a Day. This is a Jewish guy who wrote a book, talk about they purposely make so many laws in this country that they basically can convict you on anything. They do it purposely, right? And then there's another doctrine by a guy named Jeffrey Robertson called Who We Are. He tackles how this racist system is set up. You know, all these facts show and prove that black people are not really citizens with rights, but are just laborers whose job is to make America richer and more powerful, in which she uses to oppress anyone she chooses. Blacks who choose not to be laborers but fight for justice are criminalized and imprisoned, which shows why we must have reparations / liberation from this oppressive system. That's why the master teacher is sitting in the jail cell, because we teach liberation. Literally, we teach liberation. Now, this is the specialty of Claude Anderson. This is all he's been doing, for those who know him, and for those who don't. Let me bring up Claude, because I think he makes a great argument about reparations, and he's been talking about it for eons. If I can find him. Here he is. Check this out.
I'm a relatively aware and conscientious individual. I kind of have to be trying to do what I do. But I've read a couple of your highly illuminating, informative books. This one here is Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice. And you have an appendix in this book that sort of blew my mind as I was reading down it. And it's titled Boundary Safeguards and Restrictions in Southern States. And you mentioned many things, like in 1619, the Maryland segregation policy, which we're right here on the doorstep of Maryland, recommended that blacks be socially included and so many other things in this particular appendix here. But when I got down to the year 1775, there was something called the Virginia Runaway Law that allowed the sale or execution of slaves attempting to flee slavery. And I thought that I would bring this up in this discussion because oftentimes there are people who say, oh my God, why are you still talking about slavery? And I think that in 2015, there is, for the most part, a wholesale lack of appreciation for the impact that slavery, for the hundreds of years that it was practiced, has on today's world. Right. And see, Black folk are still under the impact of 360 years of slavery, another 100 years of Jim Crow semi-slavery. I didn't hear the first part you said. That they're still being burdened, they're overburdened by slavery because no one has addressed the negative impact of slavery on Black folk. Never been addressed. Because what was the purpose of slavery? The purpose of slavery was to systematically, socially engineer Black folk into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game that was based on wealth, power, and control, what you own and control. And slavery itself then maldistributed almost 100% of all this nation's wealth, power, resource, privileges, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. And Black folk don't have enough resources to be a competitive group. When Black folk came out of slavery, let's say before they went into slavery, they owned and controlled nothing. When they came out in the 1860s, a few Blacks, about 250,000 Black folk had successfully acquired 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. And that was in 1860, Rock. Here you are 150 years later, Black folks still own and control 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. And it's wealth that controls what you get, what your opportunity is going to be. And that 1/2 of 1%, what does it equate to today? That means that the typical white person right now has 3,500 times more wealth than Black folk. And they tell Black folk to go out and compete with what? What are they going to compete with? They don't own and control anything. They still own and control 1/2 of 1% of anything that value in our society, while they're being burdened down with 6 to 7 times of their fair share of everything is negative. That all the social pathology is being inflicted on them. They're the ones that are bearing the burdens of low-income housing, poverty, food stamps, welfare, dysfunctional families, no businesses, no opportunities, failing school systems. They're the ones that's being negatively impacted. Nobody has ever addressed the real issues. The civil rights movement didn't address the issues. They started talking about social integration. Social integration was not the problem with Black folk, and even the concept of civil rights. They twisted and corrupted that concept. Civil rights was initially talking about what you're going to do for Black folk in the country when it came out in 1865 and 1866 in its first civil rights laws. And what those civil rights laws were trying to address was correct the Dred Scott decision of 1857. And what I mean by that Black folk had no rights and they could own and control nothing. And so when you had, and here in Washington, D.C., you had some congressmen called radical Republicans like Congressman Benjamin, that is, and Charles Sumter and the rest of them. They said this, that the only things that Black people will never be in America, they're either going to be free or they're going to be slaves. Minimally, to be free, they must have 40 acres, a mule, and $100. Now, immediately, Andrew Johnson, who replaced Lincoln when he got assassinated, he vetoed it. And after he vetoed it, when the conservatives took over the control of Black folk, the Northerners walked away from it, left them, abandoned them. Black folk were forced into Jim Crow, segregation, and peonage. And they corrupted the whole concept of civil rights and made it a civil issue for everybody. Nobody's ever enslaved the gays, the midgets, the humpbacks, women, Asians, Arabs, Hispanic, and American Indians. They enslaved Black folk. That's why it's critically important, go back to one of your earlier questions, for people to understand. When you start talking about issues, about rights, the Dred Scott decision said the Black man has no rights. It didn't say the Asian man, the Arab man, the Mexican man, the Indian man. It says the Black man. So what's happened now is that the whole concept of civil rights and social integration, all this has been mal-distributed and it's been corrupted into what we call fabricated classes. They're getting all the benefits that Black folks should be getting today. All these, and it's intentionally and being designed to make sure everything is moved away from Black folk and the lock in the box stays on Black folks so they never get out.
So there you have it. Dr. Claudence, and I mean, wrapped it up in a nutshell. In essence, we have no power. We have literally nothing. We're just an underclass of people in America existing with no rights, no powers, basically not citizens. We have no rights, anything. And that's why they can do what they want whenever they want. And this is what reparations is about, to restore our liberation as a people. That our people need to understand that you're not going to restore your liberation with a check that you're going to spend right back with white people. You have to understand reparations is about liberation. And that's what our doctrine, that's what the master teacher was always been teaching us. But when we say reform or to reform us, to restore us, that's what the fight's supposed to be about. This is what the whole goal is. And I think Dr. Claude Anderson has the best take on what reparations is all about from me listening to different people on this subject matter. So let's go on. Question: how big is the reparations movement? Right? Answer: well, if you look on Wikipedia, we will see a global reparations movement from Black people. Africa is asking for reparations, guys. The Caribbean is asking for reparations. Haiti is asking for reparations. Black people all over the world have been victims of racism, white supremacy, and are due reparations. U.S. Congressman John Conyers, since 1989, has tried to get a bill passed, a legislation called H.R. 40 passed by the U.S. Congress to study reparations, but the white men who control the government refuse to even study whether reparations is owed. Polls were taken in the U.S., and it said that 75% of Black people agree with reparations, but 85% of white people disagree with reparations. So let's get this clear. A lot of our people agree with reparations. Okay. You do have some crazy people that don't agree, and we're going to talk about them. But a lot of our people do agree with reparations. I think our people don't understand reparations because they really, when they hear reparations, they think about check, getting a check from white people. And that's not what reparations is about. And I think that's where we as Sabians come with the mindset of liberation. And I think this is what we can add to the conversation on that topic. Now, here's the key though. White people, 85% of white people are not interested in giving us reparations. So I'm not sure why Black people keep talking to white people about this, because we already know their position. So that's important. Okay, that's very important. But what Black people don't realize, we have the power to force them to give reparations. There's a way we can do that, but only as a unified global people. We have to stop thinking of reparations just in our own little cubby holes of our nations, whether it be here in America or whether it be in the Caribbean or whether it be, in South America, Brazil, or Africa. Okay. This is really a fight that should be looked at from a global perspective, because we were attacked from a global perspective. White people came together and attacked all Black people, and they had the all same agenda. And I think we need to look at this from that perspective. That's something that Umar Johnson talks about, and I highly agree with him. We need to look at it from a global perspective, not just our own specific nation. Of course, we can get our own specific nations to how can I say, like Haiti. Haiti has to deal with France, right? So our job is to help them with that fight. Right here in America, Black people in America, we're fighting in the United States, right? Black people from other parts of the world can help us with that fight. We can help our brothers and sisters in Brazil with their fight. We can help our brothers and sisters in Europe with their fight, and our brothers and sisters on the continent. With everyone can help each other towards these goals. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Let's keep going. So the point being made is that it is clear that Black people all over the world are owed reparations and want it. The challenge we have is, what does reparation mean for us? Because a lot of us will disagree on what this word really means or what we should be fighting for. Should we be fighting for a check and a seat at the white man's table, which is what I think a lot of us are thinking about, or should we be fighting for what they for what they took from us, which is our liberation and power as a self-ruling people. We at NoopooH.org say that reparation means liberation forever from our oppressors. Reparations is not about money. It's about restoring our power and freedoms as a people. Money is a part of reparations, but not the goal of reparations, for our goal is liberation from our oppressor. Okay? So check this out. This was an argument Africans were making for reparations to the British. Which I think is profound. If I can find it right here. Listen to this.
Reparation. The action of making amends for a wrong one has done by providing payment or other assistance to those who have been wronged. That is the definition of the word under which I shall be arguing tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But first, I would like to ask something of you. Reparations for many people, like the first speaker on the opposition, carry connotations of money grabbing or financial handouts, but this motion is about more than that. Thus, I'd like you to think of it like this, as this House believes that Britain must make amends to her former colonies, which clarifies the much wider scope of this motion. Now, the British Empire at its height was the largest in history, ruling over about 1/5 of the world's population at the time, and covering almost 1/4 of the Earth's total land area. Given its vast breadth, the experiences of British colonialism in Africa versus India versus the Caribbean versus elsewhere in the world are greatly different. And so, for the purpose of providing some specificity, I intend to focus mainly on the African experience, being of Ugandan descent myself, and leave it to my esteemed colleagues on the proposition to make the cases for those other territories. Before I move on to why Britain actively owes reparations to her former colonies, I shall first, in anticipation, respond to those who would say that Britain does not and should not owe reparations at all. I was made aware of a conversation about this motion by a friend of mine a short while ago, in which the following comment was made. Well, I suppose then that we should take back the roads, the education, and the language as well at the same time. This sort of argument, this so-called white man's burden to travel the ends of the world, enlightening and Christianizing simple natives who would otherwise have nothing, is, if I may be frank, insulting and quite naive. Africa was the home of ancient kingdoms long before the arrival of colonialists, with our own cultures, our own cities, our own religions, and indeed our very own languages. Where complex civilizations were encountered, they were denied. John Hanning Speke, upon discovering the Kingdom of Buganda and its highly developed society and constitutional monarchy, expounded the theory that these people must be descended from a small residue of the original European stock. Even as late as the 1960s and 70s, the white minority government of Rhodesia denied that the ruined remains of a huge ancient stone city in what is now Zimbabwe had been built by Black Africans and pressured archaeologists into doing the same. The scramble for Africa, by its own wording alone, shows what little respect these colonialists had for the people within these lands which they were rapaciously partitioning amongst themselves. So do not let yourselves be deceived into believing that British colonialism, despite the small amount of good which it brought about in the form of modernization, was an altruistic endeavor of civilizing savages, when that was simply a ruse for European powers to take more land, amass greater wealth, and gain higher prestige in internal power struggles over global dominance.
Okay, so there you have it. Africans making their argument for reparations. And I think that's a very, it's a good argument. It's a powerful argument. But my point is that the reparations movement, it's global. It's not just local to us here in in America, reparations is due to our people all over the planet, and we need to fight it as a unified front. That's what I'm arguing here. We can't be separate in how we attack, because again, like I said, our adversary, how they attacked us, they work together, and we're going to talk about that. Question: why have we not gotten reparations, and is fighting for it realistic? Okay, so that's a question. We have been fighting for reparations since slavery, right? So you have our mother, Harriet Tubman. Okay, Harriet risked her life to restore our freedom as a people. She should be honored for her courage and bravery. Who among us can show our great ancestor Harriet Tubman the due respect by continuing our fight for reparations, aka liberation? Because that's what she was fighting for, our liberation, which is what reparations is. And obviously, after so-called emancipation of free of slavery, we was not liberated. We were still slaves. Their so-called emancipation was a trick. So with the fight that our beloved, ancestor Harriet Tubman was fighting, it's still on for us today. Here we have Frederick Douglass. He's going to talk about it. He in a speech. Let's see. Here's a quote from Frederick Douglass in 1888 speech. Frederick Douglass would blast America's false emancipation of black people. Fake, basically saying the fake emancipation of black people, as Frederick Douglass talks about it, saying, I admit that the Negro, and especially the plantation Negro, the tiller of the soil, has made little progress from barbarism to civilization, and that he is in a deplorable condition since his emancipation, that he is worse off in many respects than when he was a slave. I am compelled to admit, but I contend that the fault is not his, but that of his heartless accusers. He is the victim of a cunningly devised swindle, one which paralyzes his energies, suppresses his ambition, and blasts all his hopes. And though he is nominal free, he is actually a slave. So he's basically saying the so-called emancipation was fake, that we're still slaves. He says, I here and now denounce his so-called emancipation as a stupendous fraud, a fraud upon him and a fraud upon the world. That's what Frederick Douglass basically said. So you heard it right there from your ancestor, that we were never emancipated, guys. That's why I said, when we're arguing, especially in their courts and their governments have nothing to do with us. Their laws have nothing to do with us. Black people are not citizens. And we really need to understand that. And the Dred Scott case made that clear, and the Dred Scott case was never overturned. And we need to acknowledge this. And we need to educate our people about this. Here's Martin Luther King on reparations. Martin Luther King Jr., and I quote, here's what he says. At the time, this is a quote, at the time that America refused to give the Negro any land through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants and from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could merchandise their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm. And they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself up by his own bootstraps. King added, now we come to Washington in this campaign, we're coming to get our check. So here, this was just before they killed him. He gave this speech about the fact that white people were subsidizing white people, giving them free land. They got free land. This is something Claude Anderson talks about. White people was giving free land, millions of acres. And the government helped them develop that land, helped them farm that land, helped them build a future for themselves. And this is why white people own and control everything to this very day. And we got nothing, zero. And this is what Martin Luther King was talking about. Again, we were fighting for citizenship rights. And we have no rights, guys. Here's another one of our ancestors, the Mahdi Muhammad Ahmed. The Mahdi Muhammad Ahmed of the Sudan. Our great ancestor, the Mahdi Muhammad Ahmed of the Sudan, in the 1870s, fought for our reparations, aka liberation from the British, and won. But the Mahdi died in 1885, and no sooner the British invaded, they re-invaded the Sudan to oppress us once again. The Mahdi was of the Sudan. He was fighting for our liberation against the British and the Turks. The Turks at that time controlled Egypt, and our people in the Sudan were fighting for our liberation. And the Mahdi, he was our leader, and we won. But when the Mahdi had transitioned, he died. The British reinvaded our people in the Sudan and conquered us. Right? For those who do not know, the Mahdi is the great grandfather of Dr. York. So fighting for reparations, aka liberation, is in the DNA of all children of Wu-Sabat, guys. That's what we've always been doing, fighting for our liberation. Fighting for reparations, aka liberation, is a very realistic and plausible if we are to understand our strengths. All know our power is in unity. White people had to unite in order to conquer us, even though nations like France and England were bitter enemies. But when it came to conquering us, they put their differences aside and worked together on our destruction. All those who know the history of the Berlin Conference was when white men came together on how they were going to conquer and rule Africa. Africa and her descendants should feel no shame in asking for reparations / liberation of all white people, because we have no history of invading them, nor did we ever have such desires. World War I and World War II prove that white people have no problem in killing each other, but by them invading Africa for the past 500 years prove they will help each other in their crimes against others. The lesson to learn is that white people put aside their issues with each, the lesson to learn is that white people put their issues with each other aside to work toward a common goal. I argue we as Black people worldwide have the power within us to do the same, guys. Now here's this guy, Jeffrey Anderson. He put out a film and on this, and I think this is something else that is good. Check this out.
Into the Martin Luther King Day federal holiday week. Heads into the Martin Luther King Day federal holiday weekend. Democrats have been dealt a major blow in their effort to pass new voting rights legislation. On Thursday, Democratic Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin announced they would not support changing Senate rules to prevent Republicans from using a filibuster to block the legislation. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer had promised to vote on the rule changes by Martin Luther King Day, which is Monday, but that won't happen. And on Thursday night, Schumer adjourned the Senate until next week. Civil rights groups have been leading the campaign to strengthen voting rights on the federal level as Republicans have passed laws in 19 states over the past year to make voting harder, especially for people of color. We turn now to look at a stunning new documentary titled Who We Are, A Chronicle of Racism in America. The film centers on a talk given by Jeffrey Robinson, the former deputy legal director of the ACLU. This is the film's trailer.
I make the statement to you, America was founded on white supremacy. You could say, Jeff, that's an extreme statement. And what I would say to you is, don't believe a word I say about it. All you have to do is go look. Slavery had nothing to do with the war because they were treated as family.
I don't know if he can be reached, but if no one tries, he definitely won't change.
Land chance took place in this very spot. Everybody needs to know what happened because it's a part of our history, American history. America has demonstrated its greatness time and time again, and America is one of the most racist countries on the face of the earth. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Virginia passed a law, an enslaved person's death while resisting a master is not a felony. Would you look at those words, please, and think about the videos you have seen in the past 10 years? It's still not a felony.
We want all Confederate memorabilia removed from our city.
We have to save other lives. It is too big of a story.
And this is who we are in America.
The trailer of the new documentary, Who We Are, A Chronicle of Racism in America, featuring attorney Jeffrey Robinson. In a moment, he'll join us along with the filmmakers. But first, another clip from Who We Are.
I was 11 years old in 1968, and to my young eyes, we had been on a path toward racial justice that was amazing. There was the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. We were winning on buses and at lunch counters. We were seemingly, to me, at a tipping point where we were either going to roll forward with this incredible momentum on racial justice, or we could roll back. And then April 4th happened, and King got shot in the neck, and it felt like the whole thing just rolled back. Because then came Richard Nixon and the war on drugs. We're 50 years later now, and once again, young activists in America are making Americans take a look in the mirror in terms of our true history of race and racial prejudice. Once again, the young activists are calling us to account. Once again, America is having to look at issues of race dead in the eye. And once again, we are at a tipping point. And the question for all of us in this room is, what are we going to do about it?
Okay, so again, we're it's a fight, it's definitely a fight for justice. Question: what about Black people who say we don't deserve or should bother white people about reparations, right? Answer: sadly, we live in a world where so many Black people hate themselves and want nothing to do with any goals of Black people. Every race of people have their turncoats, and sadly, turncoats means traitors, guys. It's an old school term. It means traitors. And sadly, the Black race have many of these people. This, I argue, is not unusual since we have been on the bottom of world's people for the past 400 years, and no one likes being on the bottom of anything. I believe a lot of our self-hating members would rally to our side if they saw signs of any kind of success coming from Blackness. Black people love people love winners. People support winners. Black people want to feel good about themselves, but we have been losing for so long, it becomes hard for a lot of us to feel good about being Black. It will take the strong among us to lead the charge towards liberation, and those who are in doubt will join as they believe us to have a chance to win. I say, let's identify and study the arguments of the self-haters within our race. We must come up with counter arguments to those of the self-haters. The better we educate our people about the need and demand for reparation/liberation, the better our chances that support will grow. Ignorance on this subject is our enemy, and right knowledge is our weapon. And so, guys, I want you to check this out. There was an interview of one of these such people who was, a black guy. It's sad listening to him against our people having reparations, but it exists. Check this out.
Well, kissing the ring of the Reverend Al at the National Action Network convention this week.
Would you sign the bill for reparations?
Yes, I would. I already support that bill.
What if everything we think we know
Commercial,
about our
guys,
leaders,
commercial.
our society, and our relations with the rest of
Absolutely, I would sign that into law.
I firmly support Congresswoman Jackson Lee's bill to create a commission to study reparations.
There are things that we need to do in this country that have been a long time in coming. One of those is to move forward with reparations.
Here now is Michael Myers, former ACLU National Board member. Now, Michael, you say that this is all a scam. Explain.
Of course it is. It's more that blame whitey movement, mania, madness. It is a sheer racial rhetoric. And that's what you get at the Al Sharpton so-called House of Justice. You have buffoonery, and you have diversion, you have distraction, you have this notion of farce. So at that House of so-called Justice, you have either a horror picture show showing, or you have a farce. Either way, it is not to be taken seriously. I can't understand how serious presidential contenders can give legitimacy to a racial blowhard. And I think it is outrageous and silly and idiocy on the part of the presidential candidates. And anybody who thinks that white Americans are going to take the blame or going to feel guilty or give their land and their property away in some sort of reparations pot because they feel responsibility for the sins of their forebears. They're not.
Yeah, Al Sharpton was also trying to address the improvements in the economic standing of African Americans just in the last 2 years, and he dismissed it. Let's watch.
Blacks are still doubly unemployed to whites. You know, Trump keeps saying it's the lowest black unemployment ever was. Yeah, but we're still double the whites. How do you close the race gap? How do you close the race gap in wealth?
So it doesn't mean Trump could literally cure cancer tomorrow. And Al Sharpton said, yeah, but he should have done it, a year ago.
I cannot take Al Sharpton seriously. The whole racial movement is anti-intellectual. It's unintelligent. So I can't take buffoonery
what about
serious.
all the 2020 candidates? I mean, one after the other just prostrated themselves to Al Sharpton.
Kissing his ring, kissing his butt. I just don't get it. If they want to be serious, they should take Al Sharpton and say, no, there's not going to be any reparations. There's not going to be any steadier reparations. Where is this reparations pot coming from? James Foreman in 1969, he went to the Riverside Church and said, we want $500 million. That's all, $500 million in reparations.
Okay, that's enough for him. But it's sad. I mean, but these are the ignorant black people who think they're smart. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he's intelligent, but he obviously doesn't understand what reparations is about. Like I said, it's not about money, it's about liberation. But he's been so inbred with the Caucasian mind, he thinks like a white person. So he doesn't understand he has black DNA. He's a black person, but he thinks like a white person because he's been raised like that, educated like that, and this is the problem we're dealing with. This is the level of ignorance that we have to deal with our people who don't understand why they should not allow themselves to be ruled by white people. He doesn't get that, obviously. So question: How do we get reparations? Answer. We get reparations from the lawless by having a global African Black United or Black African United mind on the issues of reparation. I believe the reparations movement is very flawed because the focus has not been about educating Black people on why they must demand and fight for reparations. I believe in order for the reparations movement to be effective, we must have 90% of Black people worldwide on board. In order to have tens of millions of Black people supporting the reparations movement, they must be educated on why reparations is needed, and that reparations is about restoration, aka liberation from oppression and injustice. We need a worldwide petition movement to get Black people to sign and support global reparations and come up with solutions that force white people to correct what they have done and continue to do. White people are not a people of justice, so they will only do right if they are forced to do right. White people rely on our labor, consumption, and resources that we must use as leverage to force white people into justice. I know of no other unifying movement better than the reparations movement for Black people. Most reasonable Black people, when properly educated about reparations, would support such a movement. The job of those who are educated is to educate those who are not. NoopooH.org will have a petition set up so that all those who support can sign. We need 9 million people just to start because we must raise funds so that we can start an education movement about reparations. Please realize reparations is about liberation from oppression. It's about stopping white people from continuing to exploit us. It's about us restoring our power as a people to rule ourselves based on our cultures that work for us. We need worldwide yearly reparations festivals, shows, music, entertainment, events, all that is focused on educating Black people on why all must fight for this. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Only our negative, self-doubting mind will stop us. So think big, be positive, and use the power of imagination to see us achieving all our goals. Remember, knowledge rules ignorance, and mind your mind for the jewel of your soul. Okay, guys. So in essence, what we're trying to say here is that yeah, we can force them into supporting a reparations movement, but at the same time, it our people have never supported reparations in mass as a force, and that is the only way we're going to get anything done. We have to do this in mass, and we have to do this as a force. We have to do, we have to educate our people. So guys, I set up a petition on our website, NoopooH.org. NoopooH.org. If you go right here, this is the front page of NoopooH.org, and I have a tab right here, reparations petition. It's right on the front tab. You click it, and voila, it pops right up. Reparations petition right here. And I give a breakdown on the whole reparations and why we should have it, and explaining in detail, what our arguments are. And then come up here and, person sign, put their information in, and voila, and so I'm asking everybody, one, to sign it, two, to spread the word, spread the word to get our people, one, have them watch this lecture, promote this video, spread this, this video, because again, they can see the arguments that we're making so that they have a better knowledge of why reparations is important, why we think it's necessary for us, and what reparations really mean. Okay. Now, guys, we talked about we're going to set up, our an interview show, and I said it was about Wednesday. Of course, my goal was to start it last month, but unfortunately, haven't been able to get that started. But we're gonna be doing it's called On Common Ground, and it's about bringing different people. We're going to bring a lot of Sabians on. We're going to be interviewing and talking about different types of discussions. And this is we have three main things we're going to focus on in these discussions. And one of them is reparations. Another one is going to be talking about economics, right? What we can do economically as Black people around the globe, supporting each other business-wise, and culture. So we're going to talk about our concepts of culture, the difference with our culture, Wu-Sabat, maybe, how we see it, what some of the things we can do. And I'm going to be bringing on different people from different cultures, right? Hebrew Israelites and Moors and Muslims and whatever, and talk about the differences in our culture and where we can find common ground and get their opinions on reparations and what they think to get this discussion started. Because people talking about reparations, I just think that we need to really home in on what we mean by that. And my goal is to try to petition Sabians to get on board, for Sabians to really push it as a group, as an organization, so that we can talk to other organizations about it, to get a consensus. I think is a very important objective. And that's what I was trying to say. It's easy to get our people to talk about reparations and to get an agreement on our people, as opposed to trying to convince them to be Sabians. That comes later down the road. We can first build a relationship with them and then educate them about the benefits of Wu-Sabat for Black people around the globe. And so this is kind of where I'm coming from with this. And so that one of the themes on our discussion that we're going to deal with on our Wednesday discussions, right? Like I said, it's going to be called On Common Ground, and this is going to be the basis of our theme. And we're going to be tackling reparations, what we're asking for. So I want to kind of get into that. What can we get? Why we, more details about why we need reparations, folks. So check this out. We say here, this is a news show about interviewing Black people who are leaders and or proactive in their respective fields of vocation. Our goal is to find common ground where Black people worldwide can find ways to work together for the economic, social, and political benefits of Black people. We argue that for the past 500 years, Black people worldwide have been under attack by the Western world, who have pushed their agenda of racism, white supremacy. Okay, now define racism, white supremacy. So here's what we say. This is a social, economic, political, religious, educational, scientific, global construct created by powerful white men for the benefit of the white race that has first enslaved and or colonized African peoples for a set of clear objectives. 1. Slavery creates poverty for the enslaved and wealth for the enslaver. 2. Slavery transfers power from the enslaved to the enslaver. 3. The enslaver used their power to subjugate the enslaved to their cultural ideals. The creator of a culture is the ruler of that culture, who is also the beneficiary of that culture. 4. The enslaver for the past 500 years has used their ill-gotten power and wealth gained from the enslaved and colonized victims and their descendants to increase their wealth, power, and cultural dominance perpetually. 5. We live in a world today where white culture dominates the world, and white people develop military, political, and economic power to maintain their cultural global dominance in their minds perpetually. 6. The goal of this racist agenda is perpetual cultural dominance, where the racists maintain their control by being the ones who create the laws, rules, and regulations with their open door policy for others to conform to the dominant white culture or be labeled a cult, terrorist, authoritarian, criminal, isolationist, or any other negative label that the dominant white media and their advocates can use against you to assassinate your character. So again, because of their control and power they have over us, we either join them, and if we choose not to join them, they label us. And this is why the master teacher is sitting in jail. This is why so many of our so-called political prisoners and freedom fighters are sitting in jail, or they had to leave the country or whatever. Because if you don't comply to the dominant white culture, you're labeled. You're labeled a cult. You're labeled all kinds of names they do you, because that's the kind of power they have to use the media against us. So we here at NoopooH.org, who are Sabians by race and culture, reject racism, white supremacy in all its forms and its deceptive ways that it tries to present itself. We totally agree with the thesis statements of Dr. Joy DeGoey, Nilly Fuller, Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Umar Johnson, and many more, who all have addressed these issues in their unique ways as scholars within the Black community. We as Sabians do acknowledge the actual facts of the three primary races of Earth and all the mixed ethnic peoples that resulted from the three primary races, which are the first world people of us Africans, second Asiatics, third Caucasians. This fact of nature also teaches us that culture is a genetic reality, that all races on Earth have a natural nature right to live by without interference of foreigners. We argue if we as Black people around the world are going to deal with global racism, white supremacy, then it is best that Black people find a common ground to assist each other in this fight. We argue that we must create cultural agreements to find common ground to deal with an adversary that is affecting all of our lives. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they like to say. We believe that love and unity is the solution, but until then, let's find common ground to work on. We believe that the common ground to work on for Black people worldwide is a global reparations agenda to address the 500-year perpetual harm that the white race continue to execute against Black people. Because of the global elites, aka white men, world domination goals, we continue to suffer worldwide, and we demand change. We demand the white race to stop their attacks against us. We demand that the white race repair the harms they have committed against the Black race for the past 500 years, starting with our cultural freedom. What are the perpetual harms of global racism, white supremacy? Answer. 1. Slavery and colonization have put Black people worldwide in a perpetual poverty, disunity, and no power to effectively fight the white man's spy and war machine that grows stronger each and every day. 2. Here in America, white men make all the laws, rules, and regulations that has been used against Black people, which has led to our mass incarceration and mass killing of Black people by police having no military power to stop it. So we don't have military power to stop what they do to us, right? Those who make the laws and print the money rule, and all others are just subjects. 3. White men have monetized the earth. They print paper money and force Black people to comply with their culture so that we must work for them, or if we work for ourselves, we are still forced to use their monetary system in order to buy goods and services we need to survive while living on an earth that charges no one for her resources. 4. White men control world media and has weaponized it for the past 500 years, with the results being Black people desire to live white people's culture even though it kills us. We have drug addictions, food addictions, sex addictions, money addictions, gambling addictions, alcohol addictions, all things we never suffered before when we ruled ourselves. Now media has us desiring miscegenation, the gay lifestyle, wanting to alter our bodies, be it tattoos or breast implants or blonde our hair or butt injections, etc. 5. White people control all levels of education and force us to comply to their foreign education in order for us to have a decent life. Our children are routinely brainwashed every day to learn white people's history, their concepts of science, forced to speak their languages, learn their concepts of health, all of these things that are clearly biased, taught by white people while excluding our concepts of education. 6. White people's biggest weapon used against us has been their religions, be it Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. It is a fact that Black people are the first world humans who lived on this free earth for tens of thousands of years before any of these religions were ever thought of. Black people never lived by religions because we were a spiritual people whose culture was based on living in harmony with natural nature, called animism today. If we look at all the wars that have been fought in the past 2,000 years, we see religions at the forefront of the cause of these wars. So we ask the question of how many people have died or suffered in the past 2,000 years from these religious wars. My point is that our culture of animism worked just fine for us without all this bloodshed. The biggest problem with religion is that it teaches people to make decisions based on their beliefs, as opposed to our culture of animism that dealt with the facts of natural nature. Why believe in an invisible God when we can acknowledge the visible supremacy of natural nature that all life live off of for its survival? This is the African way. Now, what reparations can Black people be given to address all these issues that global white supremacy has caused? All right. 1, we demand the same freedoms of you our ancestors had before you invaded our lands, aka we demand liberation from your oppressive and destructive nature. 2, white people must stop attacking us. Stop using your guns to kill us. Stop using your media to make us look foolish or brainwash us. Stop using your wealth or laws to coerce us into selling our own out. Stop forcing your cultural ways on us. Stop with your good cop, bad cop tricks to divide us. 3, give us the necessary resources so that those of us who want to separate can build our own society, be it here in the Americas or in Africa. Or for those who want to stay, give us resources so that we can build up our communities without the interference of rich people or foreigners who are now controlling all the businesses within our communities. They must allow us to buy them out so that we can control our communities. Also, for those of us who choose to stay, give us the rights your forefathers imagined the minority groups who would need to protect themselves against the majority imposing their will, right? In the intro to, in the beginning of this nation, the so-called founding fathers argued that the majority will always be able to suppress the minority. So they have to make concessions for minority groups so that minority groups wouldn't be forced into the ways of the majority. Now, in this country, they just ignore that. And the majority forced their ways on the minority. But actually, the so-called founding fathers had a loophole so that the minorities wouldn't be oppressed like that. But no one talks about that. People forget about that. But it's real, guys. And so for our people who want to stay here as a minority, we have a right to that loophole that we're not forced into the dominant culture's way of doing things, So number 4, free all nonviolent and elderly Black people who have been imprisoned and allow us to rehabilitate all those who need it. Those who are violent or pose a danger to the community, allow us to rehabilitate them so that they can be integrated back into our society. Humans are not animals that should be warehoused. In fact, you shouldn't warehouse animals either. Plus, white people has turned their prison system into a money-making and power-coercing scheme that disenfranchise Black people, the poor, and those who are considered enemies of the state. In addition, we are not interested in participating in your barbaric death penalty program that oddly finds its way to murder us and call it legal. So, that goes in that our people need to be free in prison. They basically have a nation of us in their prisons, and most of the crimes are monetary related because they keep us in poverty. Poverty creates crime. Everyone knows this. 5, we have the right to live our culture without your interference. We need our own healthcare system, our own education system, our own transportation system, our own communication system, our own entertainment system, etc. In the same way we help you build your country for free, we expect no less treatment. 6, we need you to give us the same protections and support you give Israel, no questions asked, every year. Right? I think they were giving Israel anywhere between $4 to $8 billion a year. They supposedly stopped a few years ago, but they still give them, other aids. But they've been paying Israel like billions of dollars for like decades. It's just giving money away, whatever. But number 7, yeah, they can do that. If they can do that for Israel, my point is they can do that for us. Number 7, we need access to southern coastal lands so that we can create trading partners with our African homeland and others who wish to trade with us. So like here in Georgia, to have the coast of Savannah so that we can have our own ships to be able to, trade, to be able to send goods and services to the continent, to trade and help build with the continent. So that's something I got from Umar. That was an excellent idea. I was listening to him. In fact, Umar was the one who sparked me to even talk about this because he was talking about it. And I think it's an excellent idea. But I think, again, these are some of the things we should be asking for, when it comes to reparations, what we should be looking for. And hopefully we can spark discussions on this topic. And then number 8, we need military training and equipment so that we can defend ourselves. Also, do not spy or try to undermine us as you have done in the past, because we are not a threat to any people on earth, right? So they don't need to do that. And then number 9, anything that is due to us that we cannot think of or is hidden that is yet to be uncovered, we need reasonable time to add to our list of needs. Okay. And so there you have it. There you have it. I think that's comprehensive, guys, and understanding this whole reparations question, guys. We talked about this thing called the doctrine of discovery. Is something our people need to be very cognizant of, because the doctrine of discovery made it very clear that white people was going to invade the whole world and force the whole planet into their culture, which is what they achieved. They were very deliberate in that, to enslave us and to force us into their way of doing things. And this is what the doctrine of discovery was all about. We did a lecture talking about this when we did the lecture, Black Power versus White Power. We talked about the doctrine of discovery. So white people coming together to oppress and suppress us was very thought out. This is not something that they didn't plan. They planned and thought this out to subjugate us. And they said they wanted to do this perpetually. They wanted to have rulership over us forever. This has been their goal. It's right here. This is 1455, when Pope Nicholas V, right, issued a series of papal bulls. This is legislation from the Pope, right, 500 years ago, that granted Portugal the right to enslave sub-Saharan Africans. Church leaders argued that slavery served as a natural deterrent and Christianizing influence to barbarous behavior among pagans. So basically, They wanted to enslave us so that they can Christianize us or force us into their culture, right? To worship the white Jesus, to worship them, to serve them, what we're doing today. This was a thought out plan that white people had. Using this logic, the Pope issued a mandate to the Portuguese king, Alfonso V, and instructed him to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, that's a word for the Moors, and pagans, whatsoever, right? Pagans, they talking about us, the Africans that were into animism at the time. Says, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, guys, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdoms, the dukedoms, the counties, principalities. This is them taking everything from us, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit. So basically, they was going to steal everything from us. And this is why we need reparations. They admit what they were going to do. Take everything from us and force us under their culture. And that's what our discussion is all about. They documented it. So this is not a debate. The problem is our people don't know this history. They really don't understand it. And it is, it's our job to try our best to educate our people. That's what it's about. So again, I ask everyone to sign a petition, to spread the word about the petition, to let people know why this discussion is important, that we should be fighting to restore ourselves, to repair ourselves, which is what reparations is all about, to have these discussions. The point is to have these discussions, because I know it's an uphill battle dealing with our people, because the biggest challenge we have to overcome is the negative mind. Our people always find a reason not to do something. That negative mind, that's dealing with spirit energies, guys. You got to study that. We did discussions on that, on what is, on spirit and soul and spirit beings. Our people are very naive and ignorant when it comes to that subject matter, and they don't understand this is the cause of a lot of our negative behavior. There's a reason for it, and there's a way to deal with it. And as a spiritual people, we used to know these things. But again, like I said, because we have been forced into foreign cultures, we forgot our ancient ways, the ways we used to do things that we have to relearn. We have to restore ourselves. Again, reparations, we have to restore ourselves. And the first thing, this is why we need liberation, because we live in a culture that perpetuates these negative things on us. So again, I'm at the end of our discussion. That was a lot. We put out a lot of information. I hope it helps. I hope you guys study this topic. I hope you guys spread the word, right? Again, NoopooH.org. All you gotta do is go to, just punch in NoopooH.org, and we have the tab right here, reparations. Just click this tab. It takes you right to the page right here, and you just fill it out. Now this holds up to 1 million names. So let's get 1 million names. 1 million names. Let's get people on board. Talk to people about it. Why this is important. Why we should be educated about it. Why we should demand it. Because they have they have so much control over us, guys. And I hope y'all are aware what the plans they have in store for us, the history, what the future holds economically for Black people. I hope we're not naive to that. Because they said what in the next, what is it? They said, first of all, the wealth gap between Black and white is like, they said it would take us 200 some odd years to catch up to them. And we'll say the next, by 2030, Black people won't have any wealth. Let's see. Here's right here. African Americans' wealth may fall to zero by 2053. African American wealth fall to zero by 2023. All the future estimates for our people when it comes to having wealth and control is very bleak. It's very yucky. And we must restore ourselves. And it's because white people are consolidating their power with technology. They're getting more smarter, more able, and they're able to maintain their power and control. And if we keep following in their footsteps, we're gonna stay on the bottom of them because they're not gonna share. They're not even thinking about sharing any of that. Like I said, Farrakhan tells a story about one of our ancestors, A. Philip Randolph. If you guys, I don't know if you ever heard of the brother, A. Philip Randolph, back in the 30s or 40s. And he spoke to the president at that time was Theodore Roosevelt. No, not Theodore Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president in the 40s during World War II. And A. Philip Randolph was talking to the president about, the conditions that Black people were under and asking him to do something about it. And the president at that time, according to Farrakhan telling the story, he said the president said to A. Philip Randolph, everything you said about the conditions of Black people and the mistreatment and the injustice is absolutely right. It's true and it's yucky. But he said, but he told A. Philip Randolph, I'm not going to do nothing about it unless you force me to do something about it. And that was the response that A. Philip Randolph got. I'm not going to do nothing about it unless you force me. And white people can count on our division, which is why we can't get nothing done. We're so divided as a people. And we're so freaking negative as a people. And we can't get anything done because of our division and our negativity. And this is what our biggest challenge is. We can accomplish many things if we can overcome those things. And that's why I'm talking about we have to find common ground. We must find ways to talk and deal with each other, common ground where we can work with each other. These are the things we have to work on. These are the things we have to work on. So, with that being said, if no one have any questions, we're going to close out. We're going to close out. But I think this is an extremely important topic for us to really, tackle. And I'll leave you with the map. We put out an actual facts the master teacher wrote. Who you are, not what you accept. We must learn that. It's about who we are and not what we accept. We accepted a lot of things being under racism, white supremacy, culturally. And we must get back to who we are. And the only way we're going to do that is through liberation. We have to liberate ourselves from oppression. We must liberate ourselves from oppression. So, with that being said, like I said, we're going to close it out with our prayer systems that we do every time. For those who don't know, I always tell watch the lecture on why we pray. It's for our own spiritual development. It's very important. Our prayers, our rituals, is for your own spiritual edification. It'll help with the negative mind. Like I can't stress that enough. It is our negative mind that's dividing our people. That's why we can't work together. We always think of ways. We always look at the bad in ourselves. I can't deal with this person. I can't talk to him. I don't know. They're not right. I can't trust so-and-so. It's that negative mind that's destroying us. And our people gravitate to discussions like that. We love watching negativity, and it's a sickness among us and we got to overcome it. But with that being said, started. Bade Kalal Namasat Wufako Amer Kasaman Shalal Poot Pa Takyu Anuki Joef Pa Ashuk Impa Poot Wu Kale Ashuk Kawun Joefnia Anuki Kasaman Impa Poot Wu Pa Poot Kawun Kasaman Imnia Anuki Wahu Ama Pa Poot Wu Pa Poot Kawun Wahu Ama Nia Naku Kador Naju Amer Kasaman Impa Poot Wu Habu Amam Muskasun, Nakuk Kodor Kawan Kaleb Afaf Nakuk Daya Jaweb Pa Paut, Aman Wase Aman Dayani Kun Lake Bakui Jaweb Pa Paut, Anuki Yababi Nafasni, Pa Paut Kawun, Anuki, Pa Paut Kador, Nakuk Kador, Pa Paut Amul, Nakuk Amul, Lahahum Manahnu. Lahahum Manahnu, Ahumata Karehum, Ahumata Karekum, Ahumata Karenun, Ahumata Joefnia, Ahumata Niyawu Anukihum, Yaye Ashukre, Asmua Jayenun, Yaye Notaru Afuknun, Anunata Mukra Ukum, Yaye Notaru Afuknun, 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 Yaye Notaru Nun, Anun, Atun, Atun, Amun. Namazo Wahu, Yaye Mufaku, Yayehu, Yayehu, Yaye Notaru, Yaye Soye, Yaye Notaru, Yaye Hika, Yaye Notaru, Ankum Ata Pa Mufaku, Yayehu, Yaye Notaru, Ankum Ata Pa Mufaku, Wu Anun Ata Mukra Ukum, Wu Ankum Ata Musanun, Yayehu, Yaye Notaru, Aro Muklasnum Atum Re'e, Yayehu, Yaye Notaru, Namazo Atu, Aro and Hu. Yaye Mukdamu Afudnun, Ankum Mane Yakela Duda Muslafunun, Wu Musa Unun, Mane Yaka Sawura Paba, Mane Yaka Kawuna Kau, Mane Yaka Ata Akak, Mane Yaka Kawuna Bashar Wu Damam, Yaye Nataru Mukdamunun, Aro Muftadnun, Anhu Kawun Manza Mane Pan Nataru, Aro Anhu, Anhu Kawun Baba Yananan, Aro Anhu, Anhu Kawun Atum Re'e, Aro Anhu, Kawun Haro, Namazo Talo. Yaye Nataru Muslafunun, Afudnun Mane Pa Muchwa'u, Afudnun Mane Gal Ha'an, Yaye Nataru Afudnun, Mane Sayaka Yara, Afudnun Afudnia, Afudnia, Yaye Nataru Nun, Namazo Rabu Pa Takmuri. Nakuk Taluk Takmui Bi Pa Nataru, Mane Pa La'en Lawi Tenenu, Kale Rana Atni at the Lahe Pa Nataru, Wu Kale Namazo Atni at the Lahe Kayad Yatun Laye Pa Nataru, Pa Sawa Wu Pa Turu. Panam Masfa Kawun, Pa Sawa Wu Pa Turu, Z Kawuna Nazula Lahe Ankum, Mane Maspa Wu Masa, Ameh Hade en Wu Damal Mane Muslafu kum Wu Nataru, Aju Laye Nafasu kum, Afuk Shene Kawun kum, Pa Sawa Wu Pa Turuk, Pa Hade en Wu Pa Damal, En Nun Tawa en kum, Lahe Panen Damal Wu Shafe, En Nun Tawa Ankum Lahetem Nasuinun, En Nun Tawa Ankum Lahe Ashukuma, Ankum Ata Muslafunun, Anun Ata Mukra Ukum, Anun Talub Nasar Kuma, Anun Talub Nasar Kuma, En So Nun Kahen Nataru, En So Nun Muslafunun, Anun Ata Muspatu, Anun, Atun, Atun, Amun. Yaye Nataru Nun, Yaye Muftau, Yaye Nataru, Yaye Atum Re, Yaye Natar, Yaye Nun, Yaye Natar, Yaye Nun Tat, Yaye Natar Tat, ya ye ha, ya ye nathar, ya ye hatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye kak, ya ye nathar, ya ye kaktat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye amun, ya ye nathar, ya ye amuntat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye atum, ya ye nathar, ya ye shishash, ya ye nathar, ya ye tafafnatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sabab, ya ye nathar, ya ye natat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye arashtat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye asar, ya ye nathar, ya ye nababta hatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye satak, ya ye nathar, ya ye hara, ya ye nathar, ya ye habtwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye anaktat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye ahaharatwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye nafartun, ya ye nathar, ya ye manthu, ya ye nathar, ya ye bapti, ya ye nathar, ya ye sachamtat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye hata haratat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye ba ibis, ya ye nathar, ya ye patata, ya ye nathar, ya ye basastat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye imhatapt, ya ye nathar, ya ye hu, ya ye nathar, ya ye matat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye mahat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye kafaf re'e, ya ye nathar, ya ye mishkinat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye re'e tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye kintimate to you, ya ye nathar, ya ye hika'a, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye ma'at, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye renentat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye she, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sashat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye mafdat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sabak, ya ye nathar, ya ye anak, ya ye nathar, ya ye chanum, ya ye nathar, ya ye chanas, ya ye nathar, ya ye patata nun, ya ye nathar, ya ye soye, ya ye nathar, ya ye haktat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye amas, ya ye nathar, ya ye saraptwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye atum re'e, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye dahutwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye patata warat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sakar tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye ha, ya ye nathar, ya ye nehebka, ya ye nathar, ya ye sakar, ya ye nathar, ya ye ba'a, ya ye nathar, ya ye akar, ya ye nathar, ya ye imharatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye wapawatat, ya ye nathar, ya ye sakhataptat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye meritat sakartat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye soyetat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye garatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye asat inu, ya ye nathar, ya ye bahatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye chanam tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye manaktat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye chamem, ya ye nathar, ya ye mahatwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye kabefsin and afaf, ya ye nathar, ya ye damata afaf, ya ye nathar, ya ye meritat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye nasat, ya ye nathar, ya ye imdadatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye nachakpatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sakhat tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye anaktat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye dadad, ya ye nathar, ya ye tun, ya ye nathar, ya ye wahoo, ya ye nathar, ya ye yasas, ya ye nathar, ya ye anach, ya ye nathar, ya ye afterwit, ya ye nathar, ya ye satat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sakatwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye imaat, ya ye nathar, ya ye nana, ya ye nathar, ya ye inuit, ya ye nathar, ya ye imsataktwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye mukdaltat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye rahashafaf, ya ye nathar, ya ye maratwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye amun re, ya ye nathar, Yehu and Ata Kaled Jawef Paut Nun Re Tun Re Tun Re Mun Re Yeon Amun 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 Amun. Chapter 4. Okay, for those who are not familiar with our prayer system and our rituals and chants, again, it's about spiritual development. We did a detailed discussion on that, why we pray. So I highly recommend people to watch that lecture to give them more clarity on the rituals and why it's important, because this is not about religious practices. This is about spiritual development. And there's a big difference between religious practices and spiritual development. So definitely look at our videos and lectures on those discussions dealing with spirituality, because it's imperative. And again, for you guys who are familiar with our culture and doctrine out there, it's your obligation to go out there and spread the word, to do your best to get this information out there, so our people can start correcting their decisions, because that's what this is really all about. Our decisions. And as Sabaeans, we're supposed to be on the front lines, and it looks like we're on the sidelines. We're not out there. We're not making the noise in the world. And we got the most profound doctrine on earth. I don't know why we're on the sidelines. It's sad. It really is sad. This chat should be packed with hundreds of people. If you go to Sinet, they got like 500, 600, 700 people in his live chats. It's sad, that as Sabaeans, we're not out there. We're not doing things, we need to. We should be, really, really, one, supporting each other, working together, finding ways to make ourselves stronger and to help our people. But this is where we at. This is our situation. It is what it is. We have to do. For those who know better, do better, and for those who need help, it's our job to help. So I'm here willing to do whatever I can to help those in need and on this path of righteousness. And that's all you can do. So I'm going to stress the things that we need to get done. Because this is our goal. This is our mission. So with that being said, I bless all right? I bless all of you guys for taking the time out to check us out, and for all you guys who watch us, the recording of this discussion. I can't stress it enough. Spread the word. Spread the word. Let people know what we're doing. Let people know what we're teaching, because it's imperative. This knowledge, never forget, knowledge rules ignorance. Knowledge rules ignorance. The only reason why we are suffering and challenging, because we're dealing with others who have superior knowledge, and only the culture of Wu-Sabat can counteract the superior knowledge that we've been dealing with, guys. I know y'all may not comprehend it. That's why you have to do the rituals. The more you do those rituals, it expands your consciousness and your reasonability, and you'll see the benefit behind this. Why this is so imperative. So if you're going to call yourself a Sabian, a student of Wu-Sabat, spiritual development has to be a part of your daily routine. I know today's discussion was about reparations, and reparations dealing with our nationalistic stuff and being a nation of people, Sabian nation. And most of our people gravitate to the whole Sabian nation thing, which is wonderful. That's needed. We need our own nation. But in order for a nation to be a successful nation, it has to have a spiritual doctrine. You can't this is why Black people nations are failing, because we don't have our own spiritual doctrine. The people who rule, they rule because they have their own spiritual doctrines. And that's what our culture is about. Wu-Sabat is our spiritual doctrine in order for us to build our nation. And we really have to be clear what our spiritual doctrine is and why it's so powerful. Okay? And so until then, our brother Capre made a statement. When I first came to this doctrine in the late 90s, the books talked about the 144,000, and I thought that it's few. Now I can see 144,000 is more than what we think. It's hard for people to accept Wu-Sabat. You got that right. Yeah, there's a billion, Black people all over the earth. This doctrine is for all Black people. But, as we say, many are called, few, will choose this. I did a lecture on that, right? Many are called, few are chosen. Definitely check that out, because our people, unfortunately, they're materialists. They have been so embedded in European culture and to think like the Europeans, they don't understand spiritual development. And so our people, it's hard for them. And that's why a lot of students, they're hard. Most of our students that I've seen in my travels in this doctrine are materialists. And if you notice, most of my discussions and lectures about spiritual development, if you listen to a lot of other students, a lot of them don't focus on that. They don't. And it's a problem. It's sad, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We got to do what we got to do, and we got to teach the truth. And our people, we are material people, but we also spiritual. And existence is about spirituality. Existence is spiritual, because spiritual is energy. Everything is energy. And this is what quantum physics has taught us. This is an actual fact, that what we think is material matter is nothing but energy, guys. Material matter is more of an illusion than anything. That's why the master teacher stressed understanding quantum mechanics. He stressed that. And if our people understood our culture in ancient Kemet, right, we taught what? The concepts of Hu-He, Sia, and Hika. Hu-He was the creative force, right? The essence that grew all things. Sia was the mental perceptions for all is mind. And Hika was the manifestation of the material world. So we call the material realm Hika, the world of magic. Because we understood that which appeared to be material was really energy based. It was a morphic resonant frequency. And so when they talk about our ancestors had the power of magic and they had these abilities, it's because they knew how to tap into the morphic resonant frequencies of all objects around themselves. They were able to reanimate objects. They were able to shape things. They were able to do what people would call magic, but it's really just a high science of spiritual knowledge, understanding how things come into existence, understanding the different planes of existence. This is a part of our culture. These are powers we have. We once had, we just forgot. And Wu-Sabat re-educates you on how to restore that knowledge, that divine knowledge. That's what's up, Capre. Making a living through Wu-Sabat, we can, it can be done. But on that note, right? We'll be back next week. We'll be back next week, guys, and we'll continue our discussions. We're gonna keep this going nonstop. Until then, why do Muisar? Why do?